Okay, so were you always going Division One?
So ever since I was like little, I have like a funny story about it, but ever since I was little, I always wanted to play D1 sports. And so when I was like, I think I was probably like 9 or 10, my mom always tells this story. She goes, I went up to her and I was like, so mom, do I just like tell them that I want a scholarship? And she's like, yeah, that's exactly how it works. Um, but no, yeah, ever since I was little, I like wanted to play Division 1 sports, and I always either wanted to go to a California school or I wanted to go to Wisconsin. And then when I was the first semester of my freshman year, um, I started talking to Wisconsin like 8th grade, so I was like really young. And then first semester of my freshman year of high school, I committed to Wisconsin.
That's really early.
I know. I like think about it now and I'm like, I was like 14 when I committed. I was like, my 14-year-old self should not have been making that commitment. But I'm like, I would not change it for the world. Like, I think it was bad when I did it, like looking back on it, but I would not have changed it for the world. Like, I'm so happy with like everything and how everything has worked out and the people that I've met and the university I'm at. So, but
So I was going to ask you, were you being recruited anywhere else? But it sounds like the answer is probably no, seriously.
yeah, not any. Well, it's kind of funny. There was like other schools like emailing me, but you had to go through my coach. So like I didn't get any of the emails from the other schools. It was all just like Big Ten schools though, because I was so young. Until after I had already committed. So I'd only like gone to like a few camps other places, but Wisconsin was pretty much the only serious place I had looked at.
And that's only like an hour and a half away from where
Mhm.
you were from. Did that
Exactly.
make the transition easier?
Definitely. And so I'm actually like a fourth generation Wisconsin. And so my brother went there. And so like it definitely like made it easier. And like going into college and having like that immediate friend group, like with being an athlete, like also made it so much easier. So I graduated high school early too. So when I went, I was like coming in with like not knowing anybody. I wasn't going in with a class. Like everybody already had like established friend groups. So having that base was like amazing. And then the other people like on my floor that I lived with were so welcoming. And I'm like still friends with them today and stuff. So yeah, it was pretty smooth.
So what did the coaches say to you when you were 14, verbally committing to their university?
Um, well, I think the biggest thing was like they just like saw how much like potential that they thought I had, and they're like, we're also like obviously I'm taking a risk. I'm so young, and they're like, we're taking a risk on you too, though. So it's like once you commit, you can't like stop working, which was something I already knew, and just me being so competitive, I wouldn't let that happen because I like always want to be like the best at what I do. But they were also like, you're like born and bred Wisconsin, like you're somebody that we like want to have in this program and somebody that we think can make a difference, which is something that's always like motivated me, like knowing that like I can make a difference. So I think that was like the main thing. And then also like it's like the one thing that I always remember, which is like why, like, even though I did commit early, like I knew it was right. You just have like a connection with like somebody and like the people, like the coaches were so welcoming. And I would like, when I'd call the coaches, I'd talk to them for like an hour and a half. And it was like, I remember sitting in my basement, like pacing because I was so nervous, but it was so easy to talk to them. So, but yeah.
I talk a lot on this podcast, whether I want to or not, about coach-player relationships and how when you have a good one, it changes your entire perspective on bad coaches. And then when you have a bad coach, it changes your entire perspective on the sport.
Oh, 100%.
How do you think that being accepted and having that open dialogue with the Wisconsin coaches so early changed your perspective on playing in college?
So growing up, my coach was really hard on me, and it was like to the point where I like hated soccer. Like I wanted to quit, and I remember thinking like wanting to quit so bad, but I like thought that my dad only like loved me because I was so good at soccer, which I know is like obviously, and I've like talked to him about it, and when I told him, he was like crying. He's like, Emma, no, I would never think that. But I like thought that as a little kid, and I was like, I can't quit because if I quit, like they're not gonna like me. And I was good at it. So it was like it was really hard for me. And like if I would miss like one pass like during a practice, like I would get kicked out or they'd like run laps or I'd get like screamed at. Like it was like really intense. So I like struggled a lot with that. And like I had really bad anxiety in high school because of that. And I was so worried all the time about like what people were thinking about me. And like, I think it stemmed from soccer and stuff. And I would get like mini panic attacks before games and stuff because I'm like, if I don't play well, like people aren't going to like me. My dad's not going to love me. Like, it was so hard for me. So then when I started talking to Paula and she was like, just so welcoming, it like kind of made me like, not like hopeful, but I was like, I know that like there's more to this than like what's happening right now, which was like also kind of hard for me to think about. Like, yeah, I was like, this sucks that I'm in this right now, but I was like, I'll be good in college. But then, and like, since I've been in college, like it was still pretty bad my freshman year. And then I started like doing all my meditation work. And then that's how it's like helped so much. And my relationship now with my coach is like amazing. Like she texted me today. She was just like, asked me like how I was doing. It's just like, so like having like that coaching club, and although like it was like off, like he pushed me so hard.
It was
like,
club, it wasn't high school.
yeah, I didn't play high school, it was club, but like pushed me so much. So like I'm thankful for that because it's like helped me realize that I can get through anything, and it's like made me the player I was today because he was an amazing coach. But just like having the coach know it now, as like not a friend, obviously it's still a coach, but somebody that I can like actually have a conversation with, and if like something's going wrong, like I can talk to her about it, has like helped me so much. And like not even just like having her as a coach, but like she cares so much about me as a person more than just a player, I think has made me realize that like a good coach can like change everything for you. And also like I had mentioned, like in club, like I was scared to play. Every time I played, I was like, I'm gonna get kicked off the field, like they're gonna hate me. And like now I'm like so much more confident because I know the relationship I have with my coach is so good. And she's like, if something's going wrong, she's gonna tell me, so it doesn't get to the point where I have to be scared about it.
So did you not play at all in high school? Did you focus all of your time playing travel soccer?
Yeah, so I played club year round. And it was obviously a decision like I made, but it was definitely frowned upon if you played high school soccer. And like looking back on it again, like I'm glad because it's like helped me become the player I am today. But there's always like that little part of me that like wishes I could have had that like high school glory, like with the social aspect of it and stuff. But I mean, obviously I can't change it now. So like, yeah, so I definitely played club year round. So, but most of my teammates did too. So.
Where are your teammates now? Are they at D1 schools as well?
Some of them are at D1 schools, some of them aren't. I think the other like bigger schools, there's a few at Wisconsin. Well, 2 at Wisconsin. They were younger than me, but there's 2 at Wisconsin. One's at DePaul, 2 are at Marquette. There's some just like in smaller like MAC conferences and stuff. And then some went like D3 to like, I think it's like St. Paul's and like Oshkosh, I think might be one. But so yeah, it's like all pretty much like Midwest. One of my teammates went to San Diego, but so one of the girls, so that's why I said 2 of them now. One of them went to San Diego, but came back to Wisconsin. She just transferred this year. So.
Oh, okay. So is your Wisconsin team a fairly Midwest centric team, or do you have teammates from all over the country?
I have teammates all over the country. My 2 best friends are from Austin and Virginia. And then the incoming class, nobody's from Wisconsin. There's quite a few from Michigan and Minnesota though. But we have some from like Utah and like Arizona. So I'd say like probably like 50% are like from the Midwest and probably 50 aren't. So it's like a pretty good mix though.
So you were worried coming into freshman year, and then I'm looking at your freshman stats. You started 21 of 22 games. You were an all Big Ten freshman team member and a Big Ten Freshman of the Week honor recipient.
Yeah.
I'd consider that a solid season.
Yeah, it was yeah. Freshman year was good. It was fun. I think the other big thing that helped with that is some of the seniors on the team were one of them, her name is Peyton Wesley. She's actually getting married in like next week. But I'd grown up playing club with her. So I'd like known her since I was in like 8th grade, and it was like her last season. Same with, well, one of them actually took a 5th year, but like Jordan Bloomer and like Danny Rhodes also played up grew up playing with them. So I just like always like idolized them. So I think one of the big things like my freshman year, like no matter like how tired I would get or like what was happening, I was always like, I need to put like 110% effort in for them. Like I was like, I just want to like play well for them and for the team, which I think is something that changed from club. Was just like in club, like obviously I like wanted to play well and I wanted to win, but it was like more so for me, so I wouldn't get yelled at, honestly. But like in college, it was more so I just wanted the team to like do so well. But yeah.
And then what happened between freshman and sophomore year? Obviously COVID.
Yeah, so COVID was really hard for me, and that's when I started like seeking out like mental like health like help. So like I'd like I'd mentioned, I always had like really bad anxiety and stuff. And then I went to Virginia over the summer after freshman year to live with my best friend. And then when we came back, it was like so unknown about the season. We were only allowed to see like 4 people, I think. It was the people in our apartment. Like I couldn't even see like anybody else. And like I was like, I hate not knowing what's going on. And I don't think people enjoy not knowing what's going on, but it was like really hard for me. And like I'd always had anxiety, but we had these like sheets. Like when we'd get like doctor visits, like we have one every year, physicals, when you get the physicals. And you just like write how anxious you are and like mental health, a lot of mental health stuff. And like I'd always just like lied and said I was fine because I was like, everybody feels like me. But like it got to the point where I was like I'm not okay. Like I need to talk to somebody about it. So I actually put how anxious I was. And then like a week later, my trainer reached out. She's like, yeah, you need to go see a therapist. And I was like, okay, cool. So then I like went and talked to them and he was like, I think you'd really enjoy this like meditation thing. And I was like, okay. Like I tried it in high school because my mom was a yoga teacher and I hated it. But I was like, if a psychologist like is telling me to do it, I probably should try it. So I did it. And like the first thing that meditation coach told me was like, it's okay if like your mind wanders and like comes back. Like that's what mindfulness is about. And that was something I always hated because I thought I was just bad at it. And ever since he told me that, I was like, I'm hooked. Like I love it. And so since then, like my mental health has gotten so much better because of it. But so that was during COVID. So during that COVID season, I was like playing fine, but like we'd had a new system. We were like, our home games were in Rockford because it was like during the spring. So it was snowing. So we were driving an hour and a half every time for like a home game. And like school was awful. I hated online school. It was just awful. I hated it. I wasn't doing that well. I mean, I was doing fine, but I was like, I literally was eating, sleeping, playing soccer and studying. Like that was it. Like we'd wake up at 7 a.m. and get COVID tests every single day. Like it was just crazy. So that season was definitely like really hard for me. So that's what happened between freshman and sophomore year. And then I like stuck with the meditation thing. And then like this past season, I like attested to meditation, but like there's obviously like no science behind it, but it was like so much better. And like I've never like really gone into a game like being like, I know I'm gonna play well, like just like being confident. And like that was like this season. I think it was just because of like meditation and like being so much more calm and like being in the present and stuff. But yeah.
So you had mentioned in an article that I read about coming in as a freshman and Wisconsin sports psychologist talking to your team and you feeling like you couldn't talk to them unless it was a dire situation. And now you're saying that a year later, you actually had a trainer suggest that resource to you.
Yeah.
How did your perspective on seeking help in that way shift?
Well, so kind of like I had mentioned before, like when I needed help, like it was because I was like I need help. So it was still kind of like I still thought it was like something like dire. And I didn't think I wasn't like suicidal or like having bad thoughts, but like my anxiety was just like horrible. So that's why I asked for help. But so freshman year, like every year they'd have a psychologist come in and be like, here's my phone number. Like if you guys need anything, like please reach out, like even if it's small. and that's the only thing we would ever talk about, and it wouldn't be talked about again. And so like, even though they were like, even if it's small, like we can help, it was like never talked about, and it was never talked about in the locker room or anything. So for me, it just like made it seem like and I didn't know of like anybody going to therapy. So I just thought like you had to be like suicidal or having like awful thoughts to seek out help. And then COVID happened and they came in again, and that's when I like reached out for help. But even since then, like my coaches like started like talking about it more, and my teammates like knew I had like done meditation a lot, and like meditation is obviously like linked to mental health, so people started talking to me about it more. And I've like found out that like probably more than half of my team like goes to therapy and stuff like that, and I'm like, I never would have known because it's not a conversation. And since like, even though I think COVID is awful, I think it has just made people so much more aware that mental health is a real issue. And like, it has just like sparked a conversation. And since then, it's like, not like it's like common for us to talk about it in our locker room, but it is talked about. Like I've heard it like all the time. And like, especially with the things that I've been doing with like the podcast, and I have like a practice going on the Calm app, like people will come and talk to me about it. And I just think it's so cool. And I think it's like such a thing that needs to be talked about and like normalized, because it's like people do struggle. And the more you talk about it and the more people find help about it, it just like it helps people. And it's like the one thing that I like really praise my coach for about is like, she'll just like talk about how she goes to therapy and like how much it's like helped her and stuff. And I think her like just talking about it has like helped our team like realize that like everybody needs it. So, but yeah.
Yeah. And then what was your relationship with anxiety going into meditation? I mean, were you skeptical of the process of meditating? I mean, you've talked about how buying in was kind of difficult for you, but once you kind of learned about it, did you take to it really quickly?
So I think my experience, we're really lucky at Wisconsin because we have a meditation like coach. There's like
Oh, I saw that. That's a cool
program. His name's
resource.
Chad. Love him. Great guy. But so we're like one of the only universities I think we are the only university in the entire United States that like has access to this. And also the Center for Healthy Minds, where I like did the Calm app practice, is like right next to campus, which I think is also something that is like really cool for us. But so yeah, in high school, my parents always tried to get me to do it. And it was more so I would play better at soccer. That's why they tried to get me to do it. And I was like, no, I don't like it. My mind wanders, hate it. And then when I went here and my psychologist like recommended it for me, I was like, okay, like whatever. I was like, I don't think I'm gonna like it, but like I'll give it a shot. You know what I mean? Like like my anxiety was just like I like needed something. And so when he told me the mind wandering was normal, I was like, I'm hooked. Like I liked it because I liked doing it, but it was just hard for me to think that I'm not good at it. So I didn't want to do it. And so I started doing it, I'd say like a few times a week. And I met with him like weekly. And like the more I talked about like what was happening, I guess, like how my mind would wander, but I'd like come back and I'd like have like different thoughts. And I don't know, it just like got so much easier for me to like meditate and focus for longer periods of time. And like I'm trying to like figure out how to like explain this in a good way. But so there was times like when all of a sudden I was like, I think the one time that I was like also like, I love this. It was like probably like 3 months after I'd started. And I never really like saw any effects because we hadn't really like been in season. I know like my anxiety had gone down a little bit, but not like a ton. But all of a sudden I was standing in the shower and I was like, I'm in the shower right now. Like I'm fully right here in the shower. And I yelled at my roommate, I'm like, I'm in the shower. And she was like, Emma, what? But I was like, I never felt like so like alive and like actually in a moment. I felt like I had kind of been like going through the motions almost. And like since then, like there's been other times where it's happened, not like fully to that extent, but it's like I'll like be doing something, especially like in games that I'll realize I'll be like thinking about something. I'm like, no, like focus on the game. So I know that it's like helped me so much in like games and stuff. But so buying in was not hard because like right away, like I liked it. But I think it took me a while to see the effects of anything that were actually happening. And so now I've been doing it, I'd say, for like 2.5 years now. And like I have just seen my mental health like completely change. And there's also been like other things that have helped with it. But like I think seeing the effects and like feeling it both in my regular life and school and in sports, like is why it was easy for me to like buy in.
So what was the anxiety stemming from? Was it performance anxiety or was it a clinical diagnosis more like?
So it was not a clinical diagnosis, but I started meeting with like a new therapist. I can't actually see her right now because I'm in Kansas and she's only licensed in Wisconsin. They started seeing her like 2 months ago. And like our first meeting, she's like, you definitely have, she's like, I'm not sure what it is, but she's like, you definitely had and probably still have a little bit of an undiagnosed anxiety disorder. So that was the first time somebody had like actually like said something to me about it. But I like knew I had it in high school with just like how, but I guess I didn't really know what it was in high school. I just knew how nervous I would get before specifically sports games. But I'm like a pretty social person. And like, so this is like another aspect where I've seen it so like change so much for me. But I used to like be so worried about like what everybody else was like thinking about me and like how people perceived me, whether that be like how I was playing in soccer or whether people liked me or like thought I was pretty and stuff like that. But for me now, like I guess socially, like playing wise, it's changed because I just like come in confident now and I'm like, I know I'm a good player. Like if I play bad, that doesn't mean I'm a bad player. That just means I'm having like a bad day, which everybody has bad days. Like, but socially wise, now I've just like realized that it's like, I mean, it's still like a little bit hard. You always think about like what people think about you, but it's like, if somebody doesn't like me, there's enough people out there who do like me that doesn't like define who I am as a person. And one thing that I'm doing right now or was doing with my therapist was she was like, when you like have these thoughts, like about what, like, do people like me? Like just stuff like that. She's like, you have to be like, that's old Emma thinking, like new Emma thinking like, oh, like maybe they just don't fit into my life and like they weren't meant to be in my life and that's okay. And that doesn't have anything to do with me. That has everything to do with them because like, you know that you're a good person. So like, that's what matters. And like your family and your friends right now, like love you. And there's like people out there who you haven't met that are going to love you. So like this one person who like doesn't think the best of you, like what is that like that in the long run, that doesn't matter. So
Here's our 10-minute timer. Do you see that?
yeah, yeah, just popped up.
So let's talk about your sophomore season. You came back in the spring and you started all of the games and went to the first Big Ten championship game since 2014. What was being part of that team like with this renewed sense of self-image?
I honestly think that even then I was still struggling with it a little bit, and more junior year was when it changed for me. But it definitely did start to change during COVID. I was like meditating before every game and stuff like that. And I think for even then it was still like hard for me, especially with COVID going on more. But I also started realizing, so one of the big things that happened during sophomore year was, so we hadn't been like playing the best as a team. And like my coach and I were in like film and I was like, she was like, well, what do you think's going on? And I was like, well, you haven't been positive at all this entire year. You haven't said good job a single time to me, or I think anybody on the team. And I was like, I think that's really hurting everybody like mentally. And it's like, everybody's worried about it. And she was like, well, you guys aren't completing the simple passes, blah, 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 and kind of just like turned it on me. And I was like, whoa, like that hasn't happened before. And then my coach and I didn't talk for 2 weeks, which has never happened. And like, I have like the best relationship on the team with the coach. So like everybody like noticed it. And after 2 weeks, like, and I didn't know what to do. I was like, I don't know what's happening. Like, I wasn't a captain at the time, but like I had like a big role in the team. And it was just like shit show. We didn't know what to do. And so after 2 weeks, my coach and I sat down and had a talk, and she's like, Emma, like, you need to tell me what's going on. Like, she was like, I flipped out on you. And she's like, I'm really sorry. She's like, I didn't know how to handle what you were saying. She's like, but I'm glad you brought that to my attention. She's like, I apologize. And I was like, I feel like I'm playing bad. Like, I feel like I'm going to get benched. Like, I don't necessarily like know how to handle that. And she's like, Emma, like, why wouldn't you tell me that? Like, we need to have like an open dialogue. Like, and like, so that is like probably one of the biggest moments in my soccer career that changed. And I was like, just having that like sense of like, she was like, if something's going wrong, if I don't think you're going to play, like, I'm going to tell you. Like, we have that kind of relationship. And I was like, you like, that was like so changing for me. And I think from that game on, I don't think we lost until the Big Ten championship. It was like a flip had switched. And I think that for me was when a lot of my anxiety went away, because I was like, even if I was playing bad, like, she's going to tell me something's happening. Like, I don't have to like worry what she's thinking. And I think that's also what I've taken into my like everyday life too. It's like, if somebody really has a problem, like, they're going to tell me about it, like, which might not be true, but in my head, that's what I think. And I love that because I don't get as worried anymore. But so that is what changed for me there. And then it's like, then meditation, I think that is when meditation took off for me, because I was like, I knew that like that had helped me like mentally, and then meditation was just going to take it to a whole new level. So then one other big moment for me was in the semifinals. Yeah, semifinals. There's 4 teams left. So what the game before we were going to make it to the championship, me and 2 of my other teammates were on a Zoom call with our meditation coach, and we did this like new thing. It's called Qigong, which is like meditation, but it's like a Chinese movement one. And I'd never had a meditation where like thoughts, like my thoughts had drifted. And that entire meditation, like, I was so focused and I didn't have a single thought go through my head. And I was like, it was 10 minutes. And I was like, I'd never experienced something like that. And then in that game, there was like, I think there's like 3 minutes left, and I like scored the game winning goal that like sent us to the championship. And it was like, that was when I was like, I'm meditating forever. Cause I was like, the moment when it had happened, like, the ball just like came to my feet and I was so calm. I just like took a touch and shot it. And I was like, I knew what I was doing. And I was just like in the moment. I was like, that hadn't happened before, like, where I just like felt that. And it was just so cool and so surreal. So that was definitely like changing for me. So that my sophomore year, like, even though I didn't feel the full effects the whole season, I think those moments like sparked what like has helped me change.
So along with meditation, do you do any imagery?
Like visualization and stuff.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
yes.
how in depth does this meditation coach go?
So yeah, so he like recorded a practice for me that I listened to the night before games. And it like mixes like meditation with like imagery, and it like takes me through like a game scenario that I can like visualize in my head. And I think that also really helps me specifically in games, because then like when moments like that happens, I like feel like I'm in the moment and I'm like there, and I'm not like worrying about, am I going to score? It's like, I'm in the moment right here. And I think it's helped because I've like visualized it before.
So you were saying that happens the night before a game.
Mm-hmm.
Walk me through the day of the game. You wake up, eat breakfast. What kind of pregame routine do you normally go through?
Okay, so if it's a night game, I'll like wake up, eat. I'd never do homework day of games because that's just too much like mentally for me. So I'll like go on my phone and stuff. And then probably like an hour before we're like our team meeting, I do Qigong because of the day of the game. So I'll put on like, but that one I like do by myself, because so I do guided meditations a lot, but the day of the game I like to do it on my own. So I feel like I'm the one in control, because I know that I'm going to be the one playing in the game. So I do my Qigong, and it's like whatever movements like you're feeling like that day. It can be like pretty much anything. And normally I close my eyes, but that one I leave my eyes open too, just because I like to. So when I like look at things, a lot of times like people come up with like stories in their head, but like when you meditate with your eyes open, it's like kind of weird. Like you see things, but you're not coming up with stories about them, which I really think helps me in the game, because it's like I see what's happening and then I'm like, that's actually what's happening. I know what to like do next. But so I do that like an hour before, and then I eat a snack, then we go to pregame, and then we do our warm-up, go through our warm-up, and then in the line when we're doing the national anthem, I do this thing called like feet, seat, jaw. So it's like you take a deep breath and like focus on your feet, you take a deep breath, focus on like your seat, so it's like your quads, your hips, stuff like that, and then you take a deep breath and feel your jaw. And a lot of times like I'm so tense, and I like when I'm like jaw, I like can feel it like release, and I'm like, now I'm ready for the game. And then we're like playing the game, and like during the game I like don't do any like meditation things during the game, but it's like I will like, which never happened before, but now like I'll be like, oh, like I'm thinking about something else, like focus on this moment, like don't focus on the outcome, like focus on what you're doing right now.
And you were talking about in high school, when you would miss a pass in practice, you would beat yourself up about it.
Mm-hmm.
How has that mentality shifted now that you're firmly in college?
Yeah. So the first game I played when I came early in college, I thought I made like a really good pass, and all of a sudden I hear yelling from the sidelines. I'm like, oh my gosh, like they're gonna take me out of the game. And my coach was yelling, good job. And I was like, this is crazy. But so now like in a game, like if I miss a pass, I I honestly, the first thought I have is like win it back, get it back. And it's not even that I like don't even beat myself up about it anymore. I think I just like move on to the next thing and be like, how can I win it back? How can I help my team? Which I think helps a lot, because I think if you focus on your mistakes so much, which I used to do, it just leads to more and more mistakes. Whereas if you focus on doing the next thing right, like it just helps so much and helps you perform better. And a lot of times when you focus on doing the next thing right, you do it right. But sometimes I still do struggle. If I miss like 2 or 3 passes in a row, I'll be like, Emma, like, what are you doing? Like, you need to be better than that. But when I do that, I can like, I'll catch myself doing, I'll be like, you know what, you're fine, deep breath. So I guess I do a little meditation in the game, because you can consider a deep breath like refocusing your mind. And I'll like do that if I need to. And one thing my coach does, when I have like individuals with her, like if I like miss like a few shots in a row, she's like, Emma, like we clap and it's like gone, like past hasn't happened, like focus on the next thing.
Okay, I'm going to end this and we'll restart.
Okay, perfect.